Imagine that you've been sitting in school for 11 years. They explained algebra to you. They explained chemistry to you. They explained trigonometry to you. But no one, not a single time, explained how money works, how investments work, how taxes work, how to actually become financially independent. And a very strange question appears. How is it possible that the education system can teach you how to find the root of a quadratic equation, but cannot teach you how to earn your first $1,000? And it gets even more interesting. Because if you look at most people after school, their path looks almost identical. School to university to job to loans to job to job to job. And only a small percentage of people step outside this system and start building their own businesses, investments, or assets. So the question is this a coincidence? Or was school never actually designed to make people rich? Today we're going to figure that out. And explaining this will be Walter White. But before we begin, a small experiment. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll make the next video about money secrets only rich people know. So, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write the word money in the comments so I can see how many people are actually interested in financial freedom. Now, let's begin. School was not designed for entrepreneurs. To understand why school doesn't teach you how to become rich, we need to go back in time. Far back in time. To the 19th century. During that period, the world was changing rapidly. The Industrial Revolution had begun. Large factories were appearing, mass production, industrial plants. And the owners of those factories needed a large number of workers, not entrepreneurs, not investors, not business builders, but people who arrive to work on time, follow instructions, perform repetitive tasks, and don't ask too many questions. And this is where the modern mass education system appeared. Many historians say the modern school system was partially modeled after the Prussian education system. Its main goal was very simple: to create disciplined citizens and workers. Look at the structure of school: the bell, the lesson, the break, sitting in rows, raising your hand to speak, following instructions. This looks very similar to another system, a factory. And if you think about it, school perfectly prepares people for working a job. You are taught to complete tasks, follow rules, receive a grade for your work. Now think about this. What does school almost never teach? Taking risks, building businesses, investing, selling, thinking like an entrepreneur. And here it's important to understand something. This isn't a conspiracy. It's simply a different goal of the system. School wasn't created to make people rich. It was created to make stable workers. And here's an interesting moment. Because sometimes even teachers themselves understand this problem. Ironically, the character Walter was himself a chemistry teacher. And at the same time, he had to work 2 jobs just to survive. That's very symbolic. A person who understands complex science, but doesn't have financial freedom. And this leads us to the next problem. Why financial education is almost never taught. Let me ask you a very simple question. How many lessons in school did you have about investing, the stock market, passive income, financial planning? For most people, the answer is 0. And that's strange. Because money is one of the most important parts of adult life. You pay for housing, food, transportation, education, healthcare, and almost every major life decision is connected to finances. But students are taught sine, cosine, the structure of a cell, and almost never taught how to manage their own money. Why? There are several reasons. The first reason is that school programs change very slowly. Education systems sometimes take decades to update. What was relevant 50 years ago is often still being taught today. The second reason is that many teachers themselves were never taught finance. It's not their fault. They simply weren't trained in it. And the third reason is that financial literacy is often considered an optional subject. But in reality, it's one of the most important. Because if a person doesn't understand how credit works, how inflation works, how investing works, they can easily fall into a financial trap. And that's why many people live by the same pattern: salary to expenses, to salary to expenses. Without savings, without assets, without financial freedom. School punishes mistakes, but business is built on them. Imagine a typical situation at school. You are writing a test, 20 questions. You answered 18 correctly, but you made 2 mistakes. What happens? The teacher highlights those mistakes. Attention is focused on them. Your grade is lowered because of them. And very quickly your brain starts forming a conclusion. Mistakes are bad. And this creates a very strong psychological pattern. A person begins to fear risks, fear trying new things, fear looking stupid, fear failure. Now let's look at the world of entrepreneurship. There, everything is the opposite. Almost every successful entrepreneur has dozens of failed attempts behind them. Many companies that are worth billions today started with failures. For example, the first rockets of the company SpaceX exploded. The first startups of many entrepreneurs failed. But the difference is that in the world of business, a mistake is not the end. It's information. It's experience. It's a lesson. And that's why entrepreneurs look at mistakes very differently. They think, what can I learn from this? Instead of, I'm a failure. And this is a very important moment. Because the education system often creates a fear of making mistakes. And that fear strongly blocks entrepreneurial thinking. School teaches you to work for grades, not for results. Think about another thing. In school, the motivation is very simple: a grade. You do homework, you get a grade. You take a test, you get a grade. You answer at the board, you get a grade. And the brain gets used to working according to a very clear system: task to reward. But in real life, things don't work exactly like that. In business, creativity, and building projects, results sometimes come months or even years later. Sometimes you can work for a very long time without any immediate reward. For example, a YouTube channel. The first videos might get 20 views, 50 views, 100 views. And many people quit exactly at this stage because they are used to the school system. Do something leads to get a result. But in the real world, a different formula works. Do something leads to do something, leads to do something, leads to do something, leads to, and only then the result appears. And that's exactly why many people give up too early. Why entrepreneurs think differently. There is another important difference. People who build businesses or assets usually think differently. They don't ask, what job should I find? They ask, what problem can I solve? These are very different approaches. The first person is looking for a salary. The second person is looking for an opportunity to create value. And that is exactly what the world pays the most for. For example, the founder of the company Amazon, Jeff Bezos, didn't start with the question, who will hire me? He thought, how can online shopping be made easier? Or the founder of the company Tesla, Elon Musk, asked a different question. How can we accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy? This is the mindset of creating, not executing. And this is exactly the kind of thinking school rarely develops. Because the system is built around correct answers, ready-made solutions, instructions. But entrepreneurship is often chaos. There is no textbook. There is no correct answer on the last page. And that is why people who start creating something of their own often feel uncomfortable at first. They are stepping outside a system where everything used to be clearly defined. Why wealthy people learn differently. There's another interesting observation. Many very wealthy people learn in a completely different way compared to school. They use another approach: self-education. For example, one of the most famous investors in the world, Warren Buffett, is known for reading hundreds of pages every day. He constantly studies. But he doesn't do it for grades, not for exams. He does it through curiosity and practice. And many entrepreneurs follow a similar approach. They read books, watch lectures, study real business cases, try building projects, and practice becomes their greatest teacher. 5 skills school almost never teaches, but they lead to money. So if school wasn't designed to teach financial freedom, a logical question appears. What should you actually learn? There are several skills that appear again and again in the biographies of entrepreneurs, investors, and people who manage to create financial independence. And the most interesting thing is that these skills are almost never school subjects. Skill number 1: understanding money. Most people think wealth starts with a big salary, but in reality, wealth starts with understanding how money works. Because if a person doesn't understand what inflation is, what assets are, what liabilities are, how investing works, then even a large salary can disappear quickly. History knows many examples of people who earned millions, but eventually lost almost everything, because they didn't know how to manage money. People who understand finance think differently. They ask questions like, does this create an asset? Will this asset generate money in 5 or 10 years? This is how many investors think. For example, Warren Buffett. He is famous for investing in assets that can produce profits for decades. Skill number 2: the ability to sell. This is one of the most underestimated skills in the world, and at the same time, one of the most important. Because if you look closely, almost every business depends on sales. A company may have an amazing product, a strong team, a great idea, but if it cannot sell, it will not survive. That's why many entrepreneurs say that selling is one of the most important life skills. But selling doesn't necessarily mean convincing someone to buy something. It's much broader. Selling is the ability to explain ideas, persuade people, communicate value. Even when you go to a job interview, you are essentially selling your skills. And interestingly, most schools never teach this skill. Skill number 3: critical thinking. The modern world is filled with information. Social media, news, videos, advertisements. And it becomes extremely important to ask questions like, is this true? Is there manipulation here? Are there other perspectives? Critical thinking helps people make better financial decisions, avoid scams, see opportunities others miss. And this often separates entrepreneurs from the majority of people. They don't simply accept information, they analyze it. Skill number 4: problem solving. The biggest money in the world appears where big problems are solved. For example, the problem of fast online shopping leads to company Amazon. The problem of electric vehicles to company Tesla. Entrepreneur Elon Musk is known for constantly trying to solve extremely complex problems. And that is exactly how companies are built that change entire industries. In school, there is usually a correct answer in the textbook. But in real life, sometimes the correct answer must be created. Skill number 5: self-education. The world is changing very fast. New professions appear. Old ones disappear. Technology evolves constantly. That's why one of the most valuable skills today is the ability to learn independently. Many people think learning ends after university, but in reality, it's only the beginning. The most successful people often read books, watch lectures, experiment, build projects, and they keep doing this continuously. So now we see a very important picture. School is not bad. It provides basic knowledge. It teaches discipline. It helps develop thinking. But it was never designed to teach financial freedom. And if someone wants to understand how money works, how investing works, how businesses are built, how assets are created, they will almost always have to learn it on their own. And that leads us to the most important question. The biggest mistake many people make. There is one mistake that holds many people back. They believe school was supposed to teach them everything important. But reality is slightly different. School gives the foundation. But real education begins when a person takes responsibility for their own development. And this is actually good news. Because knowledge today is more accessible than ever before. You can watch lectures, read books, listen to podcasts, study the stories of entrepreneurs. Almost any topic today can be learned for free. So let's return to the main question of this video. Why doesn't school teach you how to become rich? Not because someone is hiding secrets, but because the education system was created for a different purpose. It was created to provide basic knowledge. Financial freedom, however, is a skill that people usually build on their own. And here is the most important advice to remember. Don't wait for someone to teach you everything. Start learning on your own. Even small steps can change a lot. For example, read your first book about finance. Start saving a small part of your income. Learn the basics of investing. Try building a small project. Very often, a completely different mindset begins with these small steps.